Take a seat.
It's not just in Asia, but perhaps in the world, because another way of looking at Japan's intrinsic weakness, if you want to call it that, is that it's a very strongly homogeneous society. And because of that, it finds it difficult to integrate new elements, new ideas, new phenomena, new cultures into that society because it's so strongly homogeneous. Although if you look at Korea, like Japan, is also a strongly homogeneous society. They've got a Korean language, Korean culture, and yet Korea is the world's capital for gaming industry, which is a very creative industry. So for Singapore, I think what you're saying is that our multiculturalism, the fact that we are a country of migrants, that we've always been integrating, assimilating people from elsewhere into a society, puts us in a very good position in today's world, where you need people with new ideas to come and cross swords with you and sharpen your thinking. So now we have listed 3 strong points about Singapore. 1, our very strong institutional, organizational capability, such as in tripartism. 2, our very strong average overall capability in our professionals, in our education system, our PMETs. And 3, perhaps a different insight in our ability to absorb talent and ideas from elsewhere and to be able to create perhaps a different kind of melting pot. So with that, you believe that we can stay relevant. What industries then would we be attracting to Singapore?
Sorry?
What industries would we attract to Singapore?
What industries? I think, this is of course off the top of my head. And Philip Yeo is not here. But I would say...
Sanjin is here.
Philip Yeo?
Sanjin is here.
Sanjin is here. Oh, I was going to say that, if I were actually out in the field today, I would focus my efforts very, very much on BMS. Because I think on BMS, we have a very viable and very potent... BMS, incidentally, is EDB shorthand for biomedical sciences. Very viable, very potent, area of trust. Need to go into biomedical sciences more and more, and you can think it through, and you can line up all the pluses and minuses, and we have all the pluses. And my own gut feel is just, this will be, in next few years, there will be another Philip Yeo success, just as Jurong Island was a Philip Yeo success. Jurong Island, we spent $7 billion building the infrastructure, and today there are more than 100 petrochemical, chemical, and pharmaceutical companies already in there. So the investment is paid many times over. And I am saying that, in BMS will be one of the areas, where Philip Yeo's real pioneering effort is going to pay off for Singapore in the years to come.
That's an industry that's beginning to mature. We're beginning to commercialize.
And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look back 1 month ago. There was this announcement, and Sanjin, correct me if the numbers is wrong. Abbott Laboratories, a company that I started seeing 40 years in Chicago, announced that they're going to invest $450 million in a nutrition plant for babies in Singapore, plus another $20 million for R&D. So altogether, $480 million. And at the height of the recession, and that is BMS. How does a company invest $480 million at the height of the 2009 recession? So that's one example. And then, of course, I have another example, a pet idea of mine, which actually is just wild. I think it is wild, but, as the days go by, I might think about it a little bit more. I think there is one direction, BMS is one direction. The other direction I feel would be very viable for Singapore, which actually we did in little bits and pieces, also with our involvement involvement of former EDB chairman, with the involvement of 3 former EDB chairmen. Mr. Ngiao had a bit to do with it, Teo Minh Kat had a bit to do with it, and Philip Yeo had a bit to do with it. So what is this big new industry sector? If I'm pitching for Singapore today, I will pitch for defense industries. I will pitch for defense industry because I think defense industries is very viable for Singapore. Let me just give you a very pragmatic view of why defense industries. You look back 40 years, what are the skills that we have built up? We have skills in microelectronics, we have skills in materials, in new materials, we have skills in quality control, we have skills in computers, IT and software and all that. And when you bring all of that together, what do you get? Which industry requires all of the skills that we have built up from microelectronics through new materials, through process control earned through the chemical plants, quality control, computer and IT. What requires all of that is the defense industry. The defense industry requires all of those skills brought together in one. So that actually has got what we will call our man-made competitive advantage. It is not a raw material advantage. All that is a man-made comparative advantage. And it will fly. And I test the idea out on the UK as an economy. When I look at UK trade now, I see that the only 2 areas in the current recession, the only 2 areas of industry that UK continues to export successfully, one is pharmaceutical and the other one is defense industries. So it cannot be wrong because that's proof. QED.
Well, that's certainly something for Swanjin to think about. But if you go on this line, I read recently a report that Finland, of all countries, Finland makes not just Nokia. You all think of Nokia when I say Finland. Finland makes Porsches. Very little known fact. But Porsches are made in Finland. They don't say made in Finland. And you can't tell the difference between the ones made in Finland and the ones made in Germany. So if Finland can make Porsches, can Singapore build new industries, even go back to industries like automotive industries?
You're right, but we go back to my auto story. Finland probably assembles the Porsches more than anything else, and maybe made some parts. And as I told you over tea outside an hour or so ago, the key transmission system in that Porsche is made by Mitsubishi in Japan. Yes. So it is the Japanese actually, that have made the guts of the transmission system, for the Porsche. I don't know where else the engine is made. Yes. So if Finland wants to assemble cars, that's good. But as far as our concern, we learn from our common market days that we do not want so much automobile, but we want automotive. So if Mitsubishi is going to do a transmission plant, a Porsche transmission plant in Singapore, I will say hallelujah.
Because so would we. Maybe the Porsches will be cheaper. Not just the rejects from the bankers, right? Mr. Yao, you're going to do a follow-up, please.
The point about the what he mentioned in this government, in Finland, they respect the engineer far more than the banker. In fact, a lot of engineers refuse to go up, take on hire some CEOs, and this one is stick to engineering. I think that's something which we have to watch out. But we have our best advisors to really not go to Shenton way, to really stay in engineering, stay with engineering. I think it's a very important point, because otherwise I think we may just go our way.
Well, as an engineer, I'll say hallelujah. Say hallelujah as well. Yes. Yes.
We are responsible for technical training. We also, in fact, responsible for technological university. I think we should really go back to this.
Yes.
Concentrate on technology and engineering.
Yeah. I think the
those will be distracted
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Young, for that. But engineer or not, I think the point of what you have raised and what Jin Bock raised is that you really have got to always look for where the value is. And that's what we have always been doing, looking for where the value is in the value chain. But that brings me to another question that a number of people have raised. And this is the question about entrepreneurship, about innovation. And the point that a number of people raised, and I won't mention the names because that takes too long, and I won't read out the exact questions. But the gist of the questions was, after all these years of promotion, we've got lots of MNCs in Singapore. But where are the Singapore local enterprises, the large ones, apart from the government-linked ones? But where are the privately held Singapore corporations? And where are the entrepreneurs? What's your thought on that?
Well, after having lived and worked for more than 20 years in the U.S., I must say that I have become a bit American in my thinking. The way that the Americans view things is as so. They see the economic growth for America, or for that matter any other country, is at its roots a social function. So in governance terms, and they think that what actually America, this is of course ideological. Their ideology is actually economic growth, performing a social function, is best carried out by private companies. If the private companies don't deliver, the social deliverables, then they will go and regulate it to the death, change it, set up a lot of rules and all that, just like we are seeing happening with the banks today. That's what they're saying. So if that is the case, and we impose that on our own situation, as Linda Lim says, we have to think in terms of, growth being for people, not people for growth. So if you think for growth being for people, and you can have, either GLC, MNC, or local company, whatever it is, delivering your social deliverables, what does it matter? To me, I can't understand the logic of that. What does it matter? As long as in governance terms, to the community, to the workers, to the country, if all the deliverables are there, the jobs are there, the good governance is there and all that, but at the top, the deliverer, why you want to worry about the shape of the deliverer, whether the deliverer is MNC? Don't forget that, you can have an MNC that performs a very good social function, and you can have a local entrepreneur that performs the worst social function. That happens.
Let me push you a little bit on this then. And in the last 5 minutes, we'll get a bit controversial. How about aspirations? For a young Singaporean, what does he look forward to? Is it just a job? Is it just, a comfortable life in a large corporation? How about building his own company and aspiring to become eventually, not unlike a Bill Gates or Larry Ellison or any one of these entrepreneurs who have started from almost nothing and built up global empires? How important is that, do you think, for young Singaporeans today?
Well, that of course, is for us to try and figure out, because, you can actually have, our young people, engineers or whatever it is, they can aspire to be the head of a large MNC organization and find fulfillment and satisfaction as much as they can find, fulfillment for a local company. So my point is this, you see, does ownership matter? If ownership doesn't matter, and the root deliverable actually is social benefits, as a result of economic growth, then does the ownership of the organization matter, as long as that happens, you see?
Okay, so we'll have to ponder that question. Before I ask my last one or two questions. Maybe one, like given the batting average we have. Are there any questions that the floor would like to raise? Because I've not really given you a chance.
David, can I take a minute and go back to my question, defense industry?
At
the end of the day, it is the people. And I think, when I mentioned that we have 3 EDB chairmen, Mr. Nyam was at one point of time the chairman of Sheng Ho Enterprises, started by Dr. Goh for defense industries. And then if you look back, after Sheng Ho, Sheng Li, sorry, not Sheng Ho. Yeah, Sheng Li. So, Teo Minh Ken has a MINDEF background. Philip Yeo has a MINDEF background. So the 3 of them all have defense background. These are all former chairmen of EDB, you see. And then we have a very credible company, ST Engineering, one of my favorites. If you look at ST Engineering today, I just give you one statistic, one stress test, so to speak, like Obama stress test, one stress test. How many companies in Singapore, either MNC or local, can have Sheng Li's order book of $10 billion? I just look at the annual report. Sheng Li, ST Engineering has an order book of $10 billion. Now, suppose we had, another 20 Sheng Li's in Singapore. How good would that be for the economy?
Yeah, it's sort of morphed into ST and ST Engineering and the other members of the ST group now. Was there a hand up? Just scratching your nose? Okay. Mr. Tan, short one? All right.
Take a seat.